We are doing our Brunch with Bernie, our national town hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders a day early today, and given the holidays and all these things. And so, Bernie, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you.
Let me just wish everybody a very happy holiday season and a great new year.
Amen. I totally agree with you. And good news for progressives, I understand.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I was just reading an article this morning which talks about a Pew Research Center poll which has the word progressive, the ideological label progressive, at a 67% approval rating, which is 5 points higher than conservative label. And I think that's interesting. But I think what we should, when we talk about progressive, I think sometimes we don't do as good a job as we should in defining what that means. Because I think when you do that, Tom, you will find that the vast majority of the American people, especially middle-class people, working people, lower-income people, will come to the conclusion, in fact, that they are progressives, if we're clear about what the progressive vision is about. And let me just say a few words on that. It seems to me, and I think it seems to the vast majority of the people in my own state, and I think across this country, that government has a fundamental responsibility to make sure that ordinary people have at least a minimal standard of living and are entitled to certain basic rights. And I think most people end up agreeing with that. If you do polls out there, and I've seen these polls, and you say, should we abolish Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, or cut those programs, you know what you find? You find Tea Party people saying, no, we believe in Social Security because we understand that when you get old and you get sick and you can't work, of course you need a strong, guaranteed retirement package. And when you ask people, should the United States join the rest of the world and have guaranteed health care to all of their people, the American people say, yeah, that makes sense as well. Then when you ask people what the right wing wants to see happen, should we give tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires and cut back on programs that are important for working families, overwhelmingly, the American people say, no, we don't think that makes a good idea. Should you be deregulating major industries like Wall Street, which have already caused so many problems for this country? People say no. So I think what our goal has got to be is to bring people together around a progressive ideology which says that government has got to stand up for the basic rights of ordinary Americans. And in order to do that, we're going to have to take on the big money interests who today have so much economic and political power. And I think we have to be very clear in understanding what the Republican agenda is about, whether it is, the Mitt Romneys or the Newt Gingriches. They are pretty consistent in what they believe. And what they believe in their vision of the future is that you give more tax breaks to the wealthiest people, despite the fact that we already have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country. Again, you go out on street corners in America and you say to people, do you think it's okay in America? Do you think it's good for the future of this country that the 400 wealthiest people own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people? Tom, you will find very, very few people who actually believe that. That is what Republicans believe. And they want to see even more inequality through more tax breaks for the wealthy, through more protecting the loopholes and expanding loopholes that large profitable corporations already have. Then you ask people about issues like free trade. Do you think it is a good idea that American companies be allowed to shut down in this country, throw millions of American workers out on the street, move their production lines to China or Vietnam or other third world countries where people are paid pennies an hour, and then bring their products back into this country? And the answer again, and interestingly enough, you have a whole lot of Republicans who say, no, that doesn't make sense. Because people instinctively understand that you cannot have a strong economy for our kids and for the future of this country if you're not producing the products that we consume. We cannot be an economy which simply distributes products made in China. And I think people go Christmas shopping, and that's what they see. Harder and harder to buy products made in the United States of America. So I think a progressive agenda is really not that hard to put together. It says we have got to create jobs in the United States right now and deal with the massive unemployment that we currently have, which in real terms is about 15%, 24, 25 million people who are unemployed or underemployed. We've got to put those people back to work, and we've got to do it now. You've got millions of young people right now, people who are graduating college, graduating high school, looking forward to beginning their careers, going out on their own, and they cannot find their first job. And the psychological impact that has on them for the future of their lives. Anxious to get out, anxious to earn a living, anxious to be independent, can't do it because there are no jobs out there. We've got to deal with that reality. And then we've got to deal with another reality equally serious and equally horrific. And that is you got people today, Tom, 55 years of age, 60 years of age, who have lost their jobs, and either they're now working at another job which pays them substantially less than they used to be making, or even worse, they have come to the realization that at the age of 60, they're never going to get another job again in their lives, and that the retirement hopes that they had for some kind of secure retirement has been shattered because they're not going to have any income. And you're seeing more and more people, by the way, taking Social Security at 62 rather than at 65 or 66, precisely because of that reason. All right. So I think as a nation, what we have got to do is understand that we can create an economy which works for the middle class and working families. We can protect the elderly, the sick, the children, and the poor. We can rebuild our manufacturing sector so that once again we are producing products made here in the United States of America and creating jobs. We can lead the world in reversing global warming by moving aggressively to energy efficiency. As we talk right now, Vermont, I should tell you, is leading the country in energy efficiency, but I could tell you in this state, there are tens of thousands of buildings right now, today, it's cold here, that are wasting 20, 30, 40% more energy than they should be because of not having their buildings properly weatherized. We can put large numbers of people to work in terms of weatherization, making the doors, making the windows, making the insulation, making the products that we need. We should be moving aggressively to wind, solar, geothermal, other sustainable energies. The last couple of years, we've seen an explosion of solar installations in this country. We can do a lot more. Cost of solar is going down. We've got to start producing the solar panels in this country. Wind is also growing exponentially. In Texas now they are producing, just in one state of Texas, 10,000 megawatts of electricity, equivalent to 10 nuclear power plants in Texas. Iowa, 20% of their electricity comes from wind. We can be producing these wind turbines, help lead the world by exporting our products around the world in terms of sustainable energy. So there's a progressive vision out there which says that we can have an economy, we can have a healthcare system that works for everybody, not an economic system which benefits the top 1% at the expense of the bottom 99%.
Right, and people get that, and apparently that word is starting to have a positive association.
I think it is. I think we have made, and I think the Occupy Wall Street movement deserves a lot of credit. The media has paid attention to that, and I think people are saying, yeah, enough is enough.
That's absolutely.
Let's worry about the 99% and not just the 1%.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line taking your calls, our national town hall meeting. Bernie, we're live on Free Speech TV today, so we'll be right back with that. And we'll be back with your calls for Senator Sanders, 866-987-THOM. Check out his website, sanders.senate.gov.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And over at sanders.senate.gov, you can sign his constitutional amendment to undo Citizens United, and B, there's a great newsletter you can sign up for. Okay, Bernie, you're still with us, right?
I am right here.
Okay, great. Michael in Caldwell, New Jersey, watching us on Free Speech TV. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Bernie. How are you?
I'm great, Michael. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Listen, I got a question. What do you think of our chances of progressives getting massive gains this year, and what are our chances of Democrats taking back the House this year?
Well, those are, in a sense, two different questions, because not all Democrats by any means are progressives. But, Michael, this is what I think. You know, some of us have been kind of ranting and raving since Obama became president, and we have said to them, to the president and his administration, if you are clear to the American people which side you are on, if you are prepared to take on Wall Street and fight for real Wall Street reform, if you're prepared to protect the needs of working families and the middle class and take on corporate America, you know what? From a public policy point of view, that is the right thing to do, and politically it is the right thing to do. So, Michael, to the degree that Democrats are prepared to say, you know what, we're not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid in order to balance a budget that was a deficit that was caused by 2 unpaid wars and tax breaks for this. We're not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. If the Democrats are clear on that, if they're going to demand that the wealthiest people, largest corporations start paying their fair share, they're going to protect the environment, create jobs in sustainable energy. You know what? I think that they could win a very, very sizable victory. And yes, I think they can retake the House and retain the Senate and reelect Obama with a good vote. But if they become wobbly and if they, you know, start begging money from Wall Street and start, you know, becoming wishy-washy on the basic issues, I think they may not do very well.
Yeah, it's the old Harry Truman quote. John in Sacramento, California, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning to both of you, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
My question is, I watched Food Inc. over the holidays, and the high fructose corn syrup is killing us. And do you think that our government completely needs to be overhauled before it completely fails? Thank you.
Well, John, if the question is, do we need a political revolution in the sense of electing people to Congress who are not there to represent the wealthy and the powerful, who are not there to protect simply the insurance companies and Wall Street and the military-industrial complex and the pharmaceutical industry and so forth? Yeah, we need to put people in elected officials in Washington and in state legislatures and in governor's offices all over this country who are prepared to fight for the rights of working families. And that speaks, again, to campaign finance reform so that candidates do not have to beg money from wealthy people. It speaks to the need of overturning Citizens United, and as Tom indicated, we have we've offered a constitutional amendment to do that. People can sign a petition on that on my website. But yeah, we're going to need some fundamental changes in the way government works in order to protect the needs of ordinary people.
And that website is sanders.senate.gov, and people can get over there and sign the petition to, or sign the, sign your support for Bernie's constitutional amendment. The place where despair is not an option, the Thom Hartmann program. Welcome back. Bernie Sanders with us for our Brunch with Bernie hour, our national town hall meeting with a guy I think of as America's senator, although the fine people of Vermont, and Louise and I were among them for a decade, are very proud that he represents them, Senator Bernie Sanders. John in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, I wanted to ask Bernie what he thought of the idea in serving the progressive cause to curtail the power of federal courts. I know it's tempting, but I'm not a fan of that, and I think that often the courts protect minority rights and also civil rights as opposed to the will of the majority. So I just was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, thanks for the question, John. I think this issue has kind of been raised to the fore by Newt Gingrich, who has decided that, I guess, when, if he, God forbid, were to be elected president, if he did not like a federal court decision, I guess he would not pay much attention to it. I think, basically the Constitution of the United States of America has worked pretty well for a few hundred years. And I think one of the points that the founders made is that we need a division of responsibility, and that we need an independent judiciary to protect the Constitution. Obviously, many of us have a real problem with the current composition of the Supreme Court, which, among other things, by a 5-4 vote, gave us the horrendous Citizens United decision claiming that corporations are people, etc. But I think an independent judiciary made up of intelligent, responsible people is what this country has historically been about and should continue to be about.
Okay. And in Ventura, California, Grant, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, thanks for taking my call, Bernie. You're the clearing through the fog. I was wondering, health care is also an issue for progressives, such as Medicare for All.
Yes.
Could you explain how progressive health care is advancing in your own home state of Vermont and your understanding of what progressive health care means?
Excellent. Thank you very much for that question, Grant. And you're absolutely right. Health care, when we talk about basic rights, clearly every one of us is going to get sick. Our families are going to have babies. We're going to die. And health care has got to be a right, R-I-G-H-T. I think in years to come, Tom, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are going to look back and say, we can't believe that you lived in a nation in which there were millions and millions of people who couldn't go to a doctor when they were sick, or people who got bankrupt. We are losing, Harvard study a couple of years ago indicated we lose about 45,000 people every year. They die because they don't get to a doctor on time. And meanwhile, we spend almost twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other nation, and our health care outcomes in some respects are worse. So we have a system that needs a total overhaul. It is bureaucratic. It is dominated by private insurance companies whose goal is not the best quality care at the least cost, but is to make as much money as they possibly can. We got a very powerful pharmaceutical industry whose goal is to make as much money as they can while they're charging our people the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, making many drugs unaffordable for people who desperately need them. So clearly, we need a fundamental change in our healthcare system. As Grant indicated, in my state, we have a governor, Peter Shumlin. We have a legislature that is prepared to go forward with a Medicare for All single-payer program. And right now, we've got a committee working on the details. That legislation has already been passed, and we're going forward with it. A lot of details that have to be worked out, because it will not be easy to be the first state in the nation to do that. But I will do everything I can to make sure that happens. And when we do that, when we say that health care is a right, that when you get sick, regardless of your income, you go to a doctor, when we put more emphasis on disease prevention, on primary health care, when we, in a very sensible way, try to attack the escalating cost of health care, which is going off the wall, endangering our economy, making it impossible for small business people to provide health care. When we understand that we've got to separate the provision of health care from business. I mean, the function of business is business. It's not providing health care. Health care should be a societal responsibility, funded in a progressive and fair way. So as Grant indicates, Vermont is working on that issue right now. We believe that if we do it well, it will become a model for other states and eventually for the country. But at the end of the day, this country must be a nation which says that all of our people are entitled to health care and that we have a high-quality system run in a cost-effective way, and that's the goal.
Janet in Kent, Ohio. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders.
Hi, Janet.
Hi. I would like to ask you a question. This has been probably at least a year ago. I believe he was a German economist who labeled the United States as the first and only underdeveloping nation in the world. And and I tend to agree with that. He said there are developed, underdeveloped. The United States is now the only underdeveloping nation in the world.
Developing, ing, as in unraveling.
Yes.
Well, the bad news is that I'm afraid that some of our European friends may be rapidly following us. But thank you for the question, Janet. And here's what I think. I don't know who that German economist was, but the facts are pretty clear. If you look at unemployment now, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at real unemployment about 15%, which is just horrendous for the young people, for old people. We're looking at median family income having gone down by over $3,000 in the last 10 years. You're looking at a shrinking middle class. You're looking at more people in poverty today than has ever been the case. You're looking at an infrastructure which is in serious damage, a healthcare system with 50 million people uninsured. So I would say, Janet, yeah, we are a developed country which is unraveling, and we need to change the nature of our economy to put it together again.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour, our national town hall meeting. Senator Bernie Sanders. Check out his website, sanders.senate.gov, and tomhartmann.com as well. We'll be right back. Talk media for the rest of us. Bernie's, by the way, Bernie's 9-hour filibuster is out as a book. It's called The Filibuster, isn't it, Bernie?
No, it's called The Speech.
The Speech. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's, I have a copy around here, and I was honored that you quoted one of my books in your filibuster. Anyhow, welcome back. It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us, immortalized on Jeopardy, and Terry in Tomburg, Virginia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Terry.
Hello, Senator Sanders.
Yes, sir.
It's great to talk with you. We have great admiration for you and for the state of Vermont.
Thank you.
We've seen a lot of progressive things come out of Vermont, including the campaign in 2004, which made creative use of the internet. I think Barack Obama's campaign picked up on some of that.
Yes.
As a practical matter, to help elect progressives to the U.S. Congress and Senate, is there a guide, a book, a website, or some organization or something you can point to help amateurs learn how to become effective activists to help elect people into the government against the tidal wave of money that's coming? And if there isn't one, could you and Thom Hartmann collaborate and create one for us?
Well, Terry, that is a great question. And this is, kind of in Vermont, we've been doing it our own way, and developing our own models here, which has been primarily focused on grassroots effort. I do and have done in my political career hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of town meetings open to everybody from our largest cities to our smallest towns. That's kind of the way I do it, and I think that works effectively. There are some really great groups out there. One that comes to mind is called the Wellstone Alliance, named, of course, after the great Senator Paul Wellstone, functioning in Minnesota, and I think there's something to be learned from those guys who put a lot of energy into grassroots organizing. I'm sure there are other organizations as well, and I should know them. But you've asked a very good question, Terry. Tom, do you know anything more about that?
My two favorites are Jim and Howard Dean started Democracy for America. It used to be Dean, and they have traveling schools where they go around and weekend course. I've taught some of them for them and been in them. And they bring people in for a weekend and teach them how to be activists, both outside the party and inside the party.
Right, no question about it. We have worked with DFA. Yeah. And they do a great job.
That's a great one.
There are other organizations.
And then the other one is Progressive Democrats of America, Tim Carpenter's organization, pdamerica.org. So democracyforamerica.com, pdamerica.org. There's a few others, but those are my favorites.
We should actually probably spend some time on that. Maybe.
Put together a list.
Yeah,
because there are some great organizations. Move to Amend is good too. They've got a democracy school that. David Cobb is doing.
And there's another group. It's called Working America.
Yeah, from the AFL-CIO.
Exactly, funded by the AFL. And they do an extraordinary job. And what they do is nothing very complicated. They have well-trained, well-educated, working-class people going out in working-class neighborhoods talking to their neighbors.
Yep.
Not all that complicated. And the results are pretty profound, because the point is a whole lot of people in this country really have not been exposed to progressive ideas. They're inundated with Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, right-wing politics, and they have not heard an alternative point of view. So I think grassroots organizations that are breaking through that wall are playing a very significant role, and those are some of them. But I think Terry raises a good question. And in the future, let's sit down and spend some time talking about some of those.
I'm going to put that on my list for my conversation this weekend with Sue and Nigel, our webmasters, about maybe just throwing a page up that has a list there, and maybe you'll want to do that at some.
So I think I would answer
Terry's
question by saying this: in many ways, it's not all that complicated. I think a lot of it. Well, of course, you want to use the internet and all that stuff, but a lot of it has to do with face-to-face discussion, educating people about what's going on, giving people a progressive vision, making sure people understand that in a democracy they can and must play an important role. And as you and I say, despair is not an option. That if they do not get out and participate politically, trust me, but there are lobbyists in Washington who will fill that void representing the wealthy and the powerful. So mostly it's grassroots activism. I think every state will do it a little bit differently, but I think it might be a good idea for you and I to review some of the best efforts taking place around the country.
Yeah. Great idea for a future show. Charles in Tucson, Arizona. You're on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Good morning, good afternoon, whichever it is there, sir. I'm wishing you happy holidays, and let's hope it's a better new year.
Good.
The question I have, sir, or an opinion I think I'm interested in, I advocate that we eliminate people in power, and I don't mean in this in a rash way. We do have business, we have opportunities in other countries that should be in this country. Is there no way that we can get that business back into this country, get our people back to work, and be done with it?
You're talking about how do we end free trade?
Yes, well,
let me give you an example of something. I think Charles raises a very important question, which Tom and I talk about a great deal, but it is not talked about terribly much in Congress or in the corporate media. And that is an understanding that a great economy, a great nation, cannot prosper if we are not producing the products, or many of the products, that we consume. And I think anybody who's been out shopping in the last few weeks knows that it is harder and harder to buy products made in the United States of America. A lot of reasons for that. But one of the reasons is our disastrous trade policies developed over the last 30 or so years, and I have to say, supported by Republicans, supported by Democrats, supported, of course, by the entire corporate world, supported by the Chamber of Commerce, whose leader has said, outsourcing is good. Companies can make money outsourcing. Hey, what's the problem? Good for the bottom line of corporations. Most Americans don't believe that, and I think that you're not going to have the kind of economy our young people need, the future of this country needs, unless we rebuild our manufacturing sector and once again put people back to work producing the products that we and the rest of the world need. And there are ways to do that, and that means changing our trade policy, whether it's permanent normal trade relations with China, NAFTA, CAFTA, or other trade agreements, which essentially give a green light to companies to throw Americans out on the street and move abroad. Let me give you just one example of something that I have done, and we've got to do, needless to say, a hell of a lot more. And I've mentioned this on the show before. If you go to the Smithsonian museums in Washington, which are great museums, what I was distressed of last year was to find that at the gift shop of these museums, most of the products being sold were not manufactured in the United States of America. And that really upset me. These are publicly, to a significant degree, publicly funded museums representing what is great about our country, our history, our culture, etc. And you had many, many gifts there that were not made in the United States, including literally busts, little statuettes of presidents of the United States. We have worked with the Smithsonian, and I think within a couple of months, you're going to see a very significant increase in the number of products they are selling made in America. Wasn't easy, but they did it. We're working with the group that sells gifts at the various national parks and monuments around the country. They are making progress as well. But we can and must put pressure on corporate America and say, sorry, if you want us to buy your products, you have got to start manufacturing them in America. There's not going to be an easy struggle, let me tell you something, but it is enormously important economically.
Esther, amen. Esther in New York City, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Happy holidays, Bernie. I signed your petition, and I want to thank you very much for all your hard work, and I hope we do overturn this Citizens United nonsense. My question is, number one, what do you think of Rocky Anderson and the Justice Party? And even if right now it seems like he doesn't have a prayer, but even if, let's say, he was elected, what do you think is really going to be the logistics of getting money out of politics and fixing all our, problems?
Well, let me just say this. I think it is, to say the least, highly unlikely that a third-party candidate is going to be elected president of the United States now. I think the issue of third-party politics is something worthy of a very long discussion. The question is, can you put together a movement? Can you fund a movement around a progressive agenda? Can you start electing people? And that's simply not going to be very, very easy. That I can tell you. As the longest-serving independent outside of the two-party system in American history. I think right now, at this particular moment, the best that we can do right now is to strengthen the grassroots movement, make progressive demands on the Democratic leadership and on the president, and put people in office who are going to fight for working families. I think that's kind of where we are right now. If there are states and communities where people can get elected outside of the two-party system, I think that's great. We've done it here in Vermont, and it's happening here and there around the country. But I think that ultimately what we have got to do right now is just galvanize working families to stand up and fight for their rights and demand that their elected officials start representing them rather than the top 1%.
It is our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders, our national town hall meeting. Senator Sanders taking your calls. Also, he has a constitutional amendment to roll back Citizens United, this insane decision by the Supreme Court. You can find it over at his website, sanders.senate.gov. Be sure to check that out, as well as it's a great news site.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit townhall.com for audio and video archives.
And you can drop into our live chat room and hang out with some of the finest minds on the universe. Maybe some pigeons from Xenu there, or at townhall.com. And we're back. Bernie, are you still there?
I am right here.
Okay, great. Okay, we just lost your image on Skype, but okay, let's pick up a call here. This is Judy in Hillsburg, California. You are on. Thank you for watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Judy? Judy must be watching her TV and not listening to her phone. Kevin in Wilmington, Vermont, watching on Free Speech TV. Kevin, you're on the air with your Senator Bernie Sanders. Kevin? Hey, our internet's down? Oh, is that weird? Okay. Bernie, we have apparently lost some kind of something here. So let me just toss it to you. Let's you and I talk for a couple of minutes here.
Okay.
I'm curious. The internet. The SOPA bill that Paul Ryan co-sponsored, there's this huge blowback against it, but Ron Wyden's running the crusade against it in the Senate. But in the House, it looks like young people might be taking down Paul Ryan, not because of his position on Social Security, but because he wants to censor the internet. I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, it's an issue we haven't really gone into enough. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to protect net neutrality. The internet has been in recent years just an enormous opportunity for people without a lot of money, small organizations, to be able to get their point of view out. It has had a profound impact on politics, and we're not going to accept any type of censorship, that's for sure. But beyond that, it's something that we have to study a little bit further. I wanted to get back to, if I could, a question that Esther asked a moment ago, because I didn't answer it as satisfactorily as I should. She asked, in a sense, about third-party politics. And I think the answer, Esther, has to do with balancing two things. There is no question that in terms of the Republican Party now, you have a party that has gone extremely right-wing. Democratic Party is a centrist party. It has some strong progressives in it. It has some pretty conservative people in it who are not very different from many Republicans. And clearly we need to be creating in this country a party that represents working families and the middle class. What we have to be careful of, and this is what the art of politics is about, and it's not easy, is do you want to do something which ends up electing a right-wing Republican to be president of the United States? I think you don't want to do that, especially in these incredibly difficult times. So how you move forward in creating a progressive movement which does not be of service to right-wing extremists is the challenge that we face.
Right.
And I think there's no magical formula, and there will be people who disagree with me. I think there are areas in the country right now where you can have progressives taking on Democrats and Republicans and winning, and that's a good thing. I think there are other areas where progressives are going to have to be working with Democrats to defeat Republicans. But I think it probably will depend on the state and the community.
Mm-hmm. And you know, this is just very much a step-by-step process. It's going to take people participating, showing up. I've been encouraging people to go to the local Democratic Party meetings and just say, "Hey, I'm ready to volunteer." Good step.
Well, that's one of the things. It's one of many things that people should be doing. Yes.
Yeah, and frankly, Republicans as well. I mean, you know, there used to be progressive Republicans. I'd like to see there should be some rational ones once again. Be a fine thing. Bernie, we're gonna rejoin. Hang on just a minute here. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and my apologies to all. We had 12 people on hold, Bernie, and we had some kind of a system failure here. Jacob right now is rebooting the system, so I'd say to anybody who tried to call in or who was on hold waiting for Bernie to call back, we should be able to put your phones on the air, but we just dumped all of our lines. Everything just died, except for you and me and the radio stations and the TV stations. We're still on the air. So, Bernie, your thoughts?
That conversation.
Let's continue the conversation.
Here. If you look at how many people are involved in the political process, the answer is not a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is to, from the ground on up, to get people involved. I can tell you right here, we had a question earlier about Vermont's role in pushing for a Medicare for All single-payer program and having our legislature pass that. That would not have happened without a group called the Vermont Workers Center, who did a great grassroots organizing effort, went to all kinds of meetings, staged meetings, made sure that legislators came and had to respond. But I think, Tom, if we can just increase in any significant way the number of people at the grassroots level who say, you know what, I don't have health insurance, or I can't afford the health insurance that I have, we have got to do a lot better than we're currently doing. We've got that. We heard today what we often hear, people disgusted about the collapse of manufacturing and American jobs being shifted to China and other countries. You got to stand up. You have to hold your elected officials and your candidates accountable on that issue. You have to make sure that we demand that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. But I think the goal is to rally the grassroots of this country, get people to understand that in a democracy, that is not only their right, that is their responsibility. That is what they have got to do, not only for themselves, but for their kids and grandchildren. Because if they don't do that, what I can tell you with 100% certainty, in Washington right now, parading around the halls of the House and the Senate are people being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to represent the wealthy and the powerful. And the only antidote to that is a strong grassroots movement of ordinary people saying, hey, government's got to represent us and not just the people on top.
Yeah, totally agree. I saw a quote from Oscar Wilde the other day. It said words to the effect of, politicians don't lead, they just get out in front of the mob, and we've got to be the mob.
That's
and,
right.
You know, and,
that
and
is
so,
absolutely
so
right.
There it is. Okay, our lines have all filled back up. Paul hasn't had a chance to pre-screen them, so I reserve the right, if somebody's drunk or obscene, to cut them off. But let's start out with the person in area code 831. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, that's me. I'm Catherine. And Tom, thank you for having him on every Friday.
Sure. Where are you calling from, Catherine?
In Monterey.
Great. Okay. Your question for Bernie?
I have been to the VA in Palo Alto. I'm a veteran, and I shop at the retail store there, and the products are not made in the United States. And I spoke with the man who's in charge of the shop, and he said they purchase them out of St. Louis. And he said they can't find people who manufacture the products in the United States that they want to sell there. So I wanted to bring this to your attention, Senator Sanders. I know you've done a lot of good work, as you mentioned, with the Smithsonian and other government agencies.
Catherine, thank you very much. As a member of the Veterans Committee and somebody very active on veterans issues and somebody working very hard to make sure that at the very least our government agencies start purchasing products made in the United States of America, that is an issue I will look into right away.
Great.
So thank you very much for that call, Catherine.
Kevin in Wilmington, Vermont. You're on the air with your Senator, Bernie Sanders.
Hey, Bernie.
Hey,
Good
Kevin.
afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. My question today, Bernie, is in light of fuel prices skyrocketing, why does Congress insist on still giving fossil fuel industry subsidies and nuclear subsidies when we desperately need to put those subsidies for green energy projects, and Congress just dropped some subsidies that they were given to the wind and solar and geothermal industries?
Kevin, thanks for the question, and you're absolutely right. What Kevin is saying is precisely correct. Our government provides ongoing subsidies and exemptions for oil, for coal, for nuclear. And while, of course, we have provided some help to the sustainable energy industry, it is intermittent. It is on a year-to-year basis, which is a very bad way to do business. One of the disasters of what's happening right now is we have not extended a number of the tax breaks for wind and solar, which is going to have a very, very deleterious impact on those industries. Wind and solar have been doing very good, been expanding significantly, creating new jobs in recent years. We have not extended the tax credits and the subsidies that they have gotten in recent years. So I agree very much with Kevin. In my view, the future of the energy in this country is with energy efficiency, wind, solar, geothermal. We've got to protect and help those industries. Oil companies that have made $1 trillion in profits in the last 10 years do not need any more subsidies or tax breaks.
Bernie, we have just a little less than a minute left. Thoughts on this last year and the year coming up?
Well, let us be very clear, and I think many of the callers, make this point. Tom, we are at a pivotal moment in American history. One of the callers quoted a German economist talking about the economy unraveling. In many ways, that's true. Our middle class is disappearing. Poverty is increasing. People don't have health care. Unemployment sky high. Global warming, a problem we have to deal with. I think those problems, all of those problems are solvable, but they are not going to be solved until literally tens of millions of people jump into the political process. And it is not just voting. You got to vote, that's for sure. But you got to be there at the grassroots level, to make sure that good people are nominated, good people are elected. You also have to be there to hold candidates and elected officials accountable. And that's the task of people in a democracy. And given these difficult moments, that's what we have got to rejuvenate.
Yep, that's the show up, tag you're it. There you go. Bernie, it's so great. It's been such a great year having you on. It's so many years. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. And again, happy holidays and a wonderful new year to everybody.
Thank you, and to you too.